Do you remember Around the World in 80 Days, where Phileas Fogg traveled 80 days by his careful calculations, but ended up arriving home on day 79? Well, I got to thinking, with airplanes traveling faster and faster, could it be possible to land before you took off? Let's take a look at this. So we have our world here, and we will be departing and arriving in central New York State. At this point on the globe, it is approximately 17,000 nautical miles around the world in a straight line distance. Now bringing in our aircraft, we're going to start small with a Cessna 172. It's a small private aircraft that travels at about 100 knots. Now we're going to assume a no-wind scenario just to keep things simple. If we were to depart January 1st at 12 a.m. for a non-stop flight, which is impossible to do because of fuel requirements, but if we did make that non-stop flight, we would land 170 hours later, or 7 days 2 hours later. This would put our arrival time at January 8th, 2 a.m., right? Actually, no. For every approximately 7 hours you fly, you cross a time zone. Now, time zones is what makes it so it can be 7 p.m. in New York City, while across the country it is only 4 p.m. in Los Angeles. This makes phone calls to friends rather interesting most days. By crossing 24 different time zones as you go around the world, the calendar at your arrival point would actually show January 7th, 2 a.m. Although we flew 170 hours, we would arrive 146 hours later. This may sound intriguing or even unbelievable. Perhaps this would be easier to see if we flew just a little bit faster. Let's take this same trip, but we're going to climb aboard the Boeing 737. This is a common passenger jet, and we're going to be cruising at about 340 knots. Again, we're going to depart January 1st, 12 a.m. A non-stop flight, which again is impossible due to fuel, but if it was a non-stop flight, it would last 50 hours, bringing us home by our watches at January 3rd, 2 a.m. But every 2 hours that we fly, we cross a time zone, basically making it so we live through the same hour twice for an entire day. This would put our actual arrival time 24 hours earlier because of that trip around the world, putting us home at January 2nd, 2 a.m., a mere 26 hours after we left. Now before we move on even faster, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. Now we're going to step up a notch, taking that same trip again, but this time we're going to climb aboard the Concorde. This aircraft was the only type aircraft ever used for supersonic passenger flight. This aircraft was decommissioned, but it was capable of a cruise speed of Mach 2.02, which is approximately 1,347 knots. With the same departure time of January 1st, 12 a.m., we would travel around the world in 12.6 hours. But for ease of calculations, we're going to say 13 hours. This would put our landing time at 1 p.m. January 1st. But with all those time zones we cross, about one every 32 minutes, we would again arrive 24 hours earlier than indicated on our watches. This would put our arrival time at 1 p.m. December 31st, an entire 11 hours before we left. It would seem that if we could sustain Mach 2 for 13 hours, we could theoretically arrive at our point of departure before we took off. But as of yet, no aircraft can sustain that speed for so long. Fuel starvation usually is the problem, and refueling procedures take an enormous amount of time, especially when on a time-sensitive schedule like this. But in the near future, with aircraft designs improving, perhaps we will see an aircraft with speed capability and fuel capacity to make a non-stop flight across the world and test the theory of landing at the same point of takeoff before it took off.